Hello and welcome to iQuanta. Today I am starting a new initiative called IRC by iQuanta, the Art of Comprehension. This will be a series of video solutions to past year CAT RC sets. I have chosen the first RC passage. It is called the Mayan Civilization from the year 2021, slot first. Here you can see a Mayan lady. Mayan civilization was before Christ in the South America and Mexico region. So they were actually very advanced. And this passage is all about Mayan civilization. But before that, I would like to discuss some difficult words which have been used in this passage so that you get a clear understanding of what the passage talks about. And this would be an exercise in which you will be learning a lot of new words which might help you in the real CAD, which is about to happen on 27th November. The first word is non-binary. The non-binary is basically a thought that all things are one. Nowadays, it is also used for sexual orientation of people. Non-binary people are those. It's a kind of movement, a thought movement in which it is believed that males and females, we should not be segregating males and females. But in this context, in this passage, non-binary is all about a thought that all things are one. When you read the passage, we'll get to know it more. And it is the source is Aristotelian ontology. Aristotle, he was a great philosopher, and his ontological thought is non-binary thought. Inanimate, showing no signs of life. That's an easy word, but yeah. So inanimate can be a living person also. We can use inanimate for a living person as well if he's showing no signs of life. A person who is sad, depressed, unthoughtful, so he or she can also be inanimate, of course, apart from the non-living objects. Swaddle is wrap something in garments or cloth. For example, we swaddle a newborn baby, right? Then applique. Applique is decorate to form pictures or patterns. You must have observed certain tribal art forms in which there can be a cap or there can be some cloth which is worn, and there are a lot of decorative items on that. So those items are called appliques. It can also be a kind of collage of pictures on some shawl, on some garment. Those are all called as applique. Ontological, as I discussed about ontology, ontological is relating to the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being. Now, metaphysics is something which is a manifestation, a kind of rhetoric manifestation of biology, or we can also say a philosophical manifestation of biology. I'll just give you an example to get it the proper meaning. You must have heard about chakras in human body. Like the head has Swadhisthana chakra and so on and so forth till Mooladhara chakra. It is used in, this terminology is used in yogic studies and all that stuff. So this is metaphysical terminology. But if we talk about the real biology behind it, the biology, it's basically the chakras. The chakras are arterial plexuses in human body, and they are essentially the endocrine glands. Pituitary near the brain to testes in males and ovaries in females. So all these endocrine glands in metaphysics are known as chakras. So that is metaphysics. And ontology, it deals with metaphysics, with the nature of being, with the nature of humanity, with the nature of animal kingdom, plant kingdom, and also in some cases, the inanimate objects. Porousness is a degree of permeability of fluids. So certain things which can be more porous, so a lot of fluid can seep through it, and if it is less porous, less liquid will seep through it. So I hope these words are clear to you, and these words will be used in the passage which is going to come over here. But before that, this tree has been mentioned in this passage. It's called the Ceiba pentandra. Ceiba tree was considered sacred by Mayan community. Let us read about this. It can probably help you in building your knowledge base. So it is a tree of the tropical forest that can grow up to 132 feet in height in some jungle communities. Strange, right? The fruits are oval capsules with a persistent calyx. They contain around 4 to 8 seeds, 4 to 8 millimeter long black seeds. There are fibers, and these fibers can be used to form cushions, pillows, mattresses, and some furniture items. That actually gives a reason that why Mayan community might be considering it to be sacred, because it was giving them means to live properly, means to live with luxury. The leaves are arranged like this. So all the things have been mentioned over here. And it also provides home for many animal species as toucans, snakes, frogs, flycatchers, insects, and even monkeys. The leaf can also be used in ornament because its abundant foliage provides shade. So probably the Mayan community might be making caps out of it with the leaves, which can provide shade to them, a kind of ancient form of umbrella. So that is why the ceiba tree was considered to be sacred by Mayan community. This is the map, just to give you a proper hindsight, a proper, an introduction, a background that what this passage is talking about. So I have come up with a lot of things which would be helpful for you directly in this passage or even indirectly in increasing your knowledge base. So as you can see, this is North America. The lower part of it is South America. In between this part, which is Mexico and all that stuff. So this red part shaded over here is basically the area of Mayans. So let us start the passage. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. So passage goes like this. CAT 2021, slot 1. The genre is history. For the Maya of the classic period who lived in southern Mexico and Central America between 250 and 900 CE, CE is Common Era, and it is also called as before Christ in other approaches, in other contexts. So CE and BC is almost the same. 250 and 900 CE, the category of persons was not coincident with human beings as it is for us. So while reading the passage, I'll keep on explaining it to you. It talks about in the Mayan civilization, people thought that persons are not just human beings like we think. Okay, that's a nice idea. Let us read further. That is, human beings were persons, but other non-human entities could be persons too. In order to explore the slippage of categories between humans and persons, I examine a very specific category of ancient Maya images found painted in scenes on ceramic vessels. I sought out instances in which faces, inside the brackets, some combination of eyes, nose, and mouth are shown on inanimate objects. Consider my iPhone, which needs to be fed with electricity every night, swaddled in a protective bumper, and enjoys communicating with other fellow phone beings. Wow, that's such a nice thought. Does it have personhood? If at all, because it is connected to me, drawing this resource from me as an owner or source. For the Maya, who did have plenty of other communicating objects, if not smartphones, the answer was no. Non-human persons were not tethered to specific humans, and they did not derive their personhood from a connection with a human. It's a profoundly democratizing way of understanding the world. Humans are not important persons. We are just one of many kinds of persons who inhabit this world. So the first paragraph actually introduces the idea that Mayans thought that everything around them, be it humans, be it plants, be it animals, be it stones, rocks, river, water, rain, everything had a personhood. Everything was essentially a person. That's such a beautiful idea. Going further. The Maya saw personhood as activated by experiencing certain bodily needs and through participation in certain social activities. For example, among the faced objects that I examined, persons are marked by personal requirements, inside the brackets, such as hunger, tiredness, physical closeness, and by community obligations, inside the brackets, communication, interaction, ritual observance. So these three things are essentially the community obligations. In the images I examined, we see, for instance, faced objects being cradled in humans' arms. We also see them speaking to humans. These core elements of personhood are both turned inward, what the body or self of a person requires, and outward, what a community expects of the persons who are a part of it, underlining the reciprocal nature of community membership. So the second paragraph talks about the relationship between different persons. In the Mayan context, the humans were not the only persons, they were persons who were objects. And in the picture that this guy, the author, examined, he felt that there were pictures in which the human and the non-humans were actually interacting like two persons do. So there were two kind of interactions, what was turning inward, that is, the which the body or the selfhood of a person requires, and the outward, which is basically the expectation of the community in which of which the person is a part. Third paragraph. Personhood was a non-binary proposition for the Maya. Entities were able to be persons while also being something else. The faced objects I looked at indicate that they continue to be functional, doing what objects do. Inside the bracket, a stone implement continues to chop. An incense burner continues to do its smoky work. Furthermore, the Maya visually depicted many objects in ways that indicated the material category to which they belonged. Drawings of the stone implement show that the person tool is still made of stone. One additional complexity, the incense burner, which would have been made of clay and decorated with spiky appliques representing the sacred ceiba tree found in this region, is categorized as person, but also as a tree. With these Maya examples, we are challenged to discard the person-object non-person binary that constitutes our basic ontological outlook. The porousness of boundaries that we have seen in the Maya world points towards the possibility of living with a certain uncategorizability of the world. So, in this third paragraph, the author has basically given the examples through which he's making his argument very clear and authentic, that there are different examples. For example, the stone implement, the incense burner. So stone implement was there, but it was not shown as a person. It was shown as a stone only, but it was behaving like a person. Similarly, the incense burner was doing its work, and it also represented the ceiba tree. There were leaves all around. So it was mentioned that the smoky burner, the incense burner, was basically made up of clay. At the same time, it also represented the tree. So this way, the definitions of living, non-living, person, non-persons were unclear. The definitions were fluid. That is what is mentioned over here, the porousness of boundaries. So there were no boundaries which could differentiate persons from non-persons. So in a way, everything around the Mayan community was essentially a person doing his or her or its job. Let us go to the questions now. The first question says, which one of the following, if true, about the classic Maya would invalidate the purpose of the iPhone example in the passage? Now, you have to keep certain things in mind while solving an ORC passage, that the question might be coming up with terms which your brain would not focus upon. For example, it is an invalidate. So basically, you have to answer something which is contradictory, right? But we humans, when we tend to write the answers, mark the answers for reading comprehension, we kind of forget the terms like where not is used, undone is used, if true, if false. So all these things we tend to forget, but here we have to make a note of that. Let us go through the options one by one. First option says the personhood of the incense burner and the stone chopper was a function of their usefulness to humans. Okay. Second, classic Maya songs represent both humans and non-living objects as characters talking and interacting with each other. Third, the clay incense burner with spiky appliques was categorized only as a person and not as a tree by the classic Maya. Unlike modern societies equipped with mobile phones, the classic Maya did not have any communicating objects. So, these statements, we have to assume them to be true according to the question, and then think whether it would invalidate the purpose of the iPhone example in the passage. Let's see that. So, if you look at the first option, it talks about that the personhood of incense burner and stone chopper was a function of the usefulness to humans. So basically, the purpose of the iPhone example is, if you look at this, consider my iPhone which needs to be fed with electricity every night. Sorrel in this. Does it have personhood? Because it is connected to me, drawing this resource from me as an owner or source, and there's a question mark. But this is something which would not be in sync, aligned with the thoughts of Maya. That is what author has said in the next statement. For the Maya, the answer was no. Okay. So first statement talks about that the incense burner and stone chopper would be having a personhood because they were useful to humans. Now, if we assume this to be true, what does that mean? That means that humans are superior to incense burners and these stone choppers. But this will go against the notion, which is the purpose, which is of the iPhone example. In that means option one is the correct option. In all other options, it's said like in the second option, it is talking about songs are representing humans and non-living objects talking, communicating. So they are basically treated as equals. Similarly, the third one, it talks about considered only as a person, not as a tree. Again, this would not go against the notion because, of course, personhood is being given there, even if it is not a tree, if it is not considered to be a tree, it is considered to be a person. So personhood has been given third option as well. So it cannot be the answer. And the fourth one, unlike modern societies, they create mobile phones. Mayan did not have any communicating objects. That doesn't really matter over here. That is out of context. In fact, in the passage is given that they had some communicating objects, but even if we do not consider that, if there were objects, then they were considered to be persons, and this fourth statement is actually out of context. So first option is the correct answer. Let us move on to the second question. Question 2 asks, which one of the following, if true, would not undermine the democratizing potential of the classic Maya worldview? Again, if you do not focus on this part, if true, would not undermine. That means we have to choose that option which is in view with this classical Maya worldview. So first option says they believe that animals like cats and dogs that live in proximity to humans have a more clearly articulated personhood. So in this option, humans have been shown to be superior than cats and dogs. That means it is against the classic Maya worldview. First option cannot be true. Second, they understood that stone implement and the incense burner in a purely human form. This might look like the correct answer, but it is not. I'll tell you why. If it is mentioned that stone implement and incense burner in a purely human form, what does that mean? That they are still considering humans to be superior and they're comparing stone implement incense to the human form, not the opposite, and they're not treated equally. So of course, this cannot be true. I'll give an example. For example, you must have heard about this thing. Shah Rukh Khan is Tom Cruise of India. Now, what does that mean? Are Shah Rukh and Tom Cruise equal? The person who has said that is assuming that Tom Cruise is superior to Shah Rukh Khan. So similarly, that is the reason why this option looks correct but is not. Third option talks about while they believed in the personhood of objects and plants, they did not believe in the personhood of rivers and animals. This is, of course, against the classic Maya worldview. Fourth option talks about they depicted their human healers with physical attributes of local medicinal plants. So here, medicinal plants and human healers have been given the equal weightage, equal importance, as if they are the same things, not different. So this is what the classic Maya worldview is all about. Option 4 has to be correct. Let us move on to the next question. Question 3. On the basis of the passage, which one of the following worldviews can be inferred to be closest to that of the classic Maya? First option says a tribe that perceives its hunting weapons as sacred person artifacts because of their significance to its survival. Second, a futuristic society that perceives robots to be persons as well as robots because of their similarity to humans. Third, a tribe that perceives plants as plants because they form an ecosystem and are marked by needs of nutrition. Fourth, a tribe that perceives its utensils as person utensils in light of their functionality and bodily needs. Let's explore the options one by one. The first one talks about that there is a significance to the survival, right? So a tribe will perceive hunting weapons as sacred person artifacts because of significance to its survival. So if tribe is thinking about its survival, and that is why it is saying that it is giving personhood to the hunting weapons, that means the society is somehow selfish, and there is a survival instinct, a survival reason of survival for that, and that is why they are giving the personhood to the weapons. That means this will be not be closest to the classic Maya. In classic Maya, the functionality is not responsible for personhood. It's just an individual person which is equal, which looks different but is same. So that is what classic Maya society believed in, and this tribe, the mentioned option one, would not be believing in the same thing. It is talking about the functionality. Second, this talks about robots to persons, robots and robots, person to robots, because similarity to humans here. Again, the problem is they're talking about the physical similarities of, even if they're talking mental similarities, then only robots and humans have been kind of taken into consideration. That means this option is not holistic. It is not talking about the entire thing. This can be true, but let us read third and fourth options first. Third option talks about person plants because they form an ecosystem marked by needs of nutrition. Wow, this looks like the proper classic Maya thought. So plants or persons because they have their own ecosystem and they also have needs of nutrition like all the persons have. So this will be the most closest to the classic Maya society. Fourth one says utensils as person because of their, okay, here also utensils will be given personhood because they are useful to humans. So again, this would not go in sync with the classic Maya thought. Let us go to the fourth question. Question number 4 says, which one of the following best explains the additional complexity that the example of the incense burner illustrates regarding personhood for the classic Maya? First option says, the example adds a new layer to the non-binary understanding of personhood by bringing in a third category that shares a dissimilar relation with the previous two. All right. Second, the example complicates the non-binary understanding of personhood by bringing in the sacred, establishing the porosity of the divine and the profane. Third, the example provides an exception to the non-binary understanding of personhood that the passage had hitherto established. Fourth, the example adds a new layer to the non-binary understanding of personhood by bringing in a third category that shares a similar relation with the previous two. This can be a difficult question. Let us think over it. Well, let us find this term in the passage, additional complexity. It is here. Additional complexity. So, drawings of this stone implement show that a person tool is still made of stone. One additional complexity, the incense burner, which would have been made of clay and decorated with spiky appliques representing the sacred ceiba tree found in this region, is categorized as a person, but also as a tree. So basically, here it is kind of, earlier in the entire passage, it was the author talked about how all the things were equal, non-binary. Here, he has kind of compared and given the similar attributes to one object which can represent two different things. The personhood from the humans from being a tool as well as being a tree. So this is the third layer of the complexity. Here is the third layer is added to the non-binary understanding of personhood by bringing in a third category that shares a relation with the previous two. Previous two is like it is in itself, it's a human tool, it's a person tool as well as a tree. So if you look at this, the first option talks about a dissimilar relation with previous two. No, it's not correct. It talks about a similar relation. The second one talks about porosity of divine and profane. So divine and profane, that has not been mentioned in the passage. So of course, again, is not correct. Third one talks about the exception to the non-binary understanding. So this complexity is not an exception. It is basically an addition where all the things had personhood, but one particular thing had the personhood, or, but it was very much similar to two different kinds of persons. One was the tree, other was the tool, which is mentioned in the fourth statement. Similar relation is there. Also, third category that shares the simulation with the previous two. That means the fourth option is the correct one. Hope you enjoyed this session, and I want to thank you all for listening this out, and all the best for your CAT exam. Stay tuned to the space to watch more such fun videos. Thank you.